Alright, now let me just read you this. Okay, now so it says... quote, Human Rights Watch interviewed 3 men, 2 of them Fatah supporters, who had been shot in the legs during the Israeli attack, apparently by Hamas security forces. The 3rd man said he had been overheard on the street criticizing Hamas. About 14, of course, this is what the 3rd man says. So, quote, about 14 of them came for me, end quote, the 3rd man said. Of course, the 3rd man still talking. Quote, so, quote, they forced me to go, from my home to a dark place near a mosque, and 4 of them shot me in the legs. 1 shot each, but 1 missed. End quote. So end quote from this Human Rights Watch report, and end quote from what the 3rd man said. But anyway, this just goes to show you the insanity. The insanity! I mean, what is this? What is this? The 3rd man was shot even for criticizing Hamas. Imagine if Israel behaved like this. We'd see the UN all over it. We'd see the media all over it. But it's Hamas doing it, so it's okay. I mean, of course, some people will then say that, well, people expect Israel to behave better because Israel's more civilized, and I can understand that. But still, so many people still excuse Hamas. Where's the arrest warrants for these Hamas leaders? I mean, it's insane. Okay, so I just talked to you about the insanity. Of course, they have arrest warrants for Israeli officials for so-called war crimes and all this stuff. Basically, arrest warrants for Israel defending herself. Basically, like what happened with Tzitzit Livni. But anyway, they also arrest former Bush officials for allegedly torturing terrorists, even though it's desired effective means in order to win the war. So you see, this is the path. This is one way how Europe is turning into Eurabia. Anyway, Douglas Faith and other former Bush officials, a Spanish court had an arrest warrant for him and for all of them, for Douglas Faith and the former Bush officials. The Spanish court had an arrest warrant for them. Now why? The reason why is because Douglas Faith and those other former Bush officials gave the Bush administration advice on the Geneva Convention that the Spanish court disagreed with, so therefore, that's why the arrest warrant was there. So even for giving the wrong information on the Geneva Conventions, you can get an arrest warrant in Europe. I mean, what is this? This is insanity. This is insanity. I mean, as Douglas Faith said, Douglas Faith wrote a Wall Street Journal article about it, but as he said, it's like if they, as Douglas Faith said, it's like if there were arrest warrants for giving the wrong advice on global warming. That's what Douglas Faith said. He said it's like that. I mean, this just goes to show how insane it is. This just goes to show how insane this is. And also, you have all these Sharia courts fully operational, like in parts of Europe, basically. You have the Sharia courts fully operational and all that. So, and all that, and you see many groups like Hezbollah Tahrir, of course, doing walking in the streets, being disruptive and all that, calling for Sharia law and all that. You have all these Islamist groups, disruptive Islamist groups, that want to have Sharia law imposed in Europe, that want to have it imposed on the world. So you see, anyone who says there's a problem is suddenly a racist, bigot, Islamophobe, and a white race is suddenly a racist according to these political correct ideologues. I mean, this is just insane. This is just insane. And how long can we deny that there's a problem? I mean, as I said, if you're in Europe, this is what I say. Welcome to Eurabia. Because Europe's becoming Eurabia. I mean, this is a Noam Chomskyization of Europe. Because the dominant thinking, because what's going on there is the way the dominant currents behave. It's like it's basically that has the same ideological views as radical leftist anti-American nuts like Noam Chomsky, like him basically. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, they even ban Israeli flags just to appease these Islamo-Fascists, and they also, of course, I mean, as with, I mean, even if you, of course, risk your life to expose Islamophobic, and then Islamophobic thugs kill you, as what happened, or an Islamophobic thug kills you, as what happened with Theo Van Gogh. He was killed by an Islamophobic thug or Islamophobic thugs, basically just because, of course, he, of course, wanted to show the problems of women in the Islamic world. So he was killed by Islamofascists. So he was killed for that. And if you're killed by Islamofascist thugs, of course, if you just for speaking up, basically, then the mentality there is going to be, oh, you had what's coming to you because you were spreading hatred towards Muslims, you were offending Muslims, so you had what was coming to you. And this is exactly how a radical Islamic State behaves. This is exactly how Saudi Arabia behaves. You speak out, you speak out against Islamophobic, you speak out about the problems, and you get killed, you get tortured. This is exactly how Iran, Saudi Arabia, in these Islamo-fascist countries behave. It's exactly how they behave. But I mean, it just goes to show the insanity. This just goes to show the insanity in Islamic terror attacks and the suicide bombings including the suicide bombings on Israel. I mean, of course, they're seen as horrible, but they're seen as, oh, these terrorists were so oppressed, like with the Palestinian-Israeli thing. Oh, the Palestinians are so oppressed, basically, that oh, the Palestinians were so, I mean, and it's seen as, oh, the Palestinians were so oppressed that they had no choice but to send in suicide bombers and kill men, women, and children because of Israel's so-called oppression there. And the same thing there, like with 9/11 and 7/7, though, the West has been so oppressive that these Islamic terrorists had no trouble to defend themselves and all that. For I think a poll in Europe has shown that, well, that out of all the countries that's an obstacle to world peace, I mean, this was taken years ago, out of all the countries that's an obstacle to world peace, most Europeans said it was Israel. Not Iran, not Islamofascism. Little tiny Israel is an obstacle to peace. Little tiny Israel, which has all these genocidal threats all around, which is fighting to survive. Little tiny Israel is an obstacle to peace. I mean, what? What is this? WTF? That's what I'm saying. WTF? I mean, what is this? That is insane. And this is why Europe's becoming Eurabia. This is why I say to the European people, welcome to Eurabia. Because Europe's heading down that direction unless it changes its course. And not follow these extreme leftist anti-American beliefs that, of course, collaborate with Islamists because they hate America so much, even though Islamo-fascists represent everything these radical leftists claim to oppose. For these radical leftists claim that they stand for equality. They claim to stand for equality. That they stand for minority rights. That they stand for gay rights. That they stand for women's rights. All the stuff that these Islamo-fascists are against because they want to persecute non-Muslims and women. And they want to kill those who leave Islam and kill homosexuals and kill those who criticize Islam. I mean, but this just goes to show how the radical left just hates America. The radical left just hates America and they want to impose socialism. So we have to win this war and we have to defeat these Islamo-fascists, or else our democracy is going to go bye-bye. Because our democracy and freedom is the most valuable thing. It's the soul of the West. It's the soul of our society. It's the most valuable thing because it allows us to because we can criticize the government and speak out on any issues we want. So our democracy and freedom is the most important thing we have, and we have to defend it. That's why we have to win this war with Islamo-fascism. Win it. We have to win this war. And Europe has to change its course. Shalom.